Good afternoon, good morning. This is Mark Johnson from Loyalty360. Hope everyone's happy, healthy, and safe on this wonderful Monday morning, afternoon, depending on where you are. I want to welcome you to another edition of Loyalty Live. In this series, we talk to the leaders in customer channel and brand loyalty about the technology trends and best practices that are impacting their ability to drive unique experiences and engagement. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Matt Cates. Matt Cates is the Chief Marketing Officer at Prizelogic. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing well. How are you, Mark?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. I know Matt going back a number of years. They have a pretty unique technology and process at Prizelogic. So why don't you start off, tell us a little bit about Prizelogic for those who may not know what you guys do, and also be great to know about your role and kind of what you do at Prizelogic.
Certainly. And thanks for having me on. I've enjoyed the past Loyalty Live shows, and excited to contribute to this one. At Prizelogic, we focus on incentivized engagement, which is really creating this mutual value exchange between brands and their consumers to achieve a variety of marketing objectives. And we do this with three kind of core incentive types. We've got loyalty programs, rebates and offers, and then promotions such as sweepstakes and contests. And we work both with directly with brands as well as with a great set of agency partners. In terms of industries that we participate in, CPG is our biggest one, but we also have healthy participation in financial, restaurant, QSR, entertainment, telecom, electronics, and some of our bigger clients are Molson Coors, PepsiCo, T-Mobile, Samsung, and Lowe's. So it's great to contribute and learn across a variety of different industries. In terms of my role, as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here. I've been here about 3 years. My job is, positioning ourselves, making sure that brands understand how we're relevant to them, how we add value to both what they're trying to achieve and to their relationships with their customers. And then also, how do we translate that into helping our existing clients understand how we can contribute more to their ecosystem, as well as bringing in those new brands and logos to the company.
Absolutely. Obviously, the last 6 months have been very disruptive, challenging for marketers to drive customer loyalty and unique experiences. Can you maybe mention a brand or two that you think is doing a really good job of creating customer loyalty? And it doesn't have to be during COVID-19, but and why you think that brand is driving deeper customer loyalty?
No, absolutely. So one that comes to mind, and it's one that we enjoy participating in as a partner, is T-Mobile with T-Mobile Tuesdays. Obviously, great program, been around for a number of years. And what I enjoy about them is they really flip that loyalty paradigm. So instead of you do these things, I'll give you points for doing these things, it's really a recognition and a thank you for being a customer. And that's it in its simplest form. But to me, what's really interesting about it is they're creating positive brand interactions. So if you think of industries like telecom, banking, cable, insurance, these are brands you use regularly, but you don't really reach out and interact with the brands directly. Oftentimes, the only times you do it is when something's wrong. My cable's down, my telephone's not working. And so what T-Mobile does is give people a reason to interact in a positive way, every week with their brand. And then they do a good job of amplifying that, socially. So now the only reasons I interact with the brand are not, predominantly negative, and they're positive ones. They happen more frequently, and the social space is kind of filled with it. So it just, it shows how you can think about loyalty differently, and how an industry that, sometimes is challenged with differentiation, as everyone claims their map is better than another person's map, is doing something very different. I also like, Hilton Honors. Obviously, they do a number of things that other, travel brands do to reduce the friction of travel. One of the nice things they've added recently is not only can you, check in through the app and get your digital key through the app, but they also allow you to have a map of the hotel where you can pick your room specifically. So instead of saying by the elevator on a high floor, I can see what's available. And it's just a great example of empowering the loyalty member, the customer, in a scalable way, and really like this frictionless personalization opportunity. So I think continued innovation in that space is wonderful.
Interesting. Yeah, Hilton does a good job. Hopefully, the travel continues to go back, but their
Absolutely.
app is actually very easy to use. And I travel a lot for sports with my kids, and every time I don't go to Hilton property, it's a little frustrating for brands that don't have that, like because it makes it so easy just to get in and out.
Absolutely.
So, COVID-19 has had a pretty big impact on marketers, their brand strategies, customer loyalty strategies. And what are your clients asking for you right now that is, changed different than maybe what they were asking for and of you last summer or even earlier in 2020?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like 2020 has been, quite a different year for all of us. And I almost break the COVID impact into like three phases. There was, the first one was the absorbent pause, like this, we don't, we need to take a breather and understand, we know we need to change, but how do we need to change? I think that second phase is, early on was like, how is my brand relevant during COVID? And, doing that in a very authentic way, not, creating the perception that you're taking advantage of this in your message, but how does it make sense? And so, Molson Coors is one of our clients, and they've done a really good job of figuring out how to very authentically add that in. And I'll give you a few examples. That obviously they don't just sell through grocery and mass. They also the restaurant industry is huge for them, and that's had a big impact. So they've given back to that by creating a virtual tip jar to help people contribute to it. There's a smaller brand called Mova, which is a 100-calorie wine spritzer. And approaching Mother's Day is a different Mother's Day, for all of us in terms of what it means and new stresses. And so what they did is a program, it's kind of, you take a step back, how do you promote a brand during Mother's Day when there's all this, strife going on? And they kind of created this, this zero judgment hotline where, encouraging moms to call in. The number was 833, I think -3 scream. And basically what they did is leading up 10 days till Mother's Day, they had people call in and record like all the different ways that life's hard, such as like, fifth grade math is harder than it used to be. I have no idea how to make banana bread as baking takes off, and then, they wanted to create this venting outlet, which is very
Yeah.
relevant during Mother's Day, and give people, the opportunity to win some rewards and nice things against it. The brand Miller High Life did it around, recognizing that, weddings are getting all pushed and delayed, and they created a program, giving people $10,000 towards their dream wedding, asking them how they would also, obviously plan to incorporate Miller High Life into that. But it just shows how, you start pivoting and figuring out, as COVID is a big part of all of our lives, what does it mean for the brand relationship? That's the second phase. And now I think we're kind of moving into that third phase where it's not just about COVID. It's about, how do I evolve my marketing strategies? Like, so for, brands that do a lot of sports marketing, well, sports is finally back, but there's not in stadiums. So how do we take that virtually out? Travel brands, how do we maintain that relationship now? So it's become sometimes less directly about what is my COVID message for my brand, and more about, I had this plan, this brand plan for the year. What do I need to evolve it? Because, sports is a key passion point,
Right.
so I can't not do it, but how do I have to do it differently?
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely sports marketing is definitely changing for sure. I think we heard that a while back during our virtual event. Ally talked about some of the challenges they're having with
Absolutely.
NASCAR and just how it's changing, but how they've kind of driven some of that change. And obviously, a proactive agency like yourself can help them drive that. So that's great to hear. You mentioned CPGs. They're a big part of your client base, right? Loyalty programs continue to grow in importance, but more importantly, in impact in that vertical. What do you think is driving that growth, and how should we be looking at efficacy in that arena?
Sure. So yeah, CPG, wasn't one of the, original loyalty industries, like travel and financial and retail and such. But over the last 10 years, and even more so in the last 5 years, CPG has really grown in that area. And I think taking a step back, it's not just to jump on the loyalty trend, train, what have you. CPGs have this kind of unique problem that is even more than loyalty, that the other industries don't, in that they don't directly own the client or the consumer relationship, so they are filled with amazingly some of the most talented marketing individuals in the world, and they do some of the best marketing out there, but at the end of the day, their relationship with consumers is a little bit arm's length, meaning your grocery stores, your Targets, your Walmarts, your club stores, they're the ones that ultimately own that direct relationship. And so, if you're one step removed, especially in an age where, data and direct relationships and personalization is so much more important, that puts you at a deficit. So loyalty programs for CPGs aren't just about creating that share of spend and driving, incremental purchase, et cetera. At its core, a lot of it is developing that direct relationship with consumers, where they can essentially de-anonymize who they are, understand what they buy, and help motivate that behavior. And so that to me is one of the big reasons for growth, is that they both benefit from everything that we know about loyalty in terms of driving purchase and growing the relationship, but also kind of connecting the dots and having that direct relationship with consumers where they can be more relevant, more impactful.
Absolutely. And can you talk about some of the biggest challenges? You've hit on a few of them, right? With regard to, they don't have that direct relationship. And also, they working through the channel, right? So if someone getting Kellogg's at Kroger and getting in a Giant Eagle, they have a hard time kind of amalgamating this transaction. So getting them to not only raise their hand, but identifying and receipt scanning, some of those things can be a big challenge, right? Just getting in them even to self-select.
Yeah, absolutely. So CPG does have challenges. They also have a number of, strong fundamental loyalty elements. So
Yeah.
they have, the benefit of purchase frequency. These are products that people buy regularly. They also, consumers use the products with high frequency, whether, some are daily, if not weekly. And so those are really good. But the biggest challenge, yeah, you mentioned one is, how do you validate that purchase? It's not as seamless as I buy an airline ticket and it automatically shows up. And that's been improved dramatically. And there are fortunately a variety of ways that you can do that through codes on pack. Receipt scanning technology has grown dramatically. And also, gives you, our receipt scanning capability doesn't just validate the purchase that you made for that CPG brand that's participating in the loyalty program, but also can give you full basket insight so that you can be aware of what competitor products, or, we work with like a Johnson & Johnson who has a variety of different products out there. So we can understand what other categories could we go after. And we can also, you can also at times integrate it directly with retailers. So that part's improved a lot. The other challenge area is reward attainability. And, I mentioned, you have the CPG has the benefit of strong purchase frequency, but unfortunately the spend per purchase isn't that strong. If you're a soft drink, it's a couple bucks. If you're a cleaning product, maybe $10. But compared to what I spend on airline tickets or on my credit card or buying clothes, that spend is a lot smaller. And really the challenge is, if even though they buy things quite often, if they don't spend that much per transaction, it makes it a lot harder for me to give meaningful payback. And a consumer's time is valuable, so you can't just say, well, you're not really spending that much, so I can't give you that much back. And so focusing on what is that attainable reward solution is fundamental, because as we know, the main reason why people drop out of loyalty programs is because they can never earn a reward, or it's too hard to do that. And in our research, that's even amplified in CPG. So different solutions, such as are like the concept of a chance to win reward, which takes in our buying raffle tickets to try and win things. We also do things in for our alcohol clients, where we have these digital label makers, so you can personalize the label that you put on. But basically, it has to be, you don't want your attainable rewards to be trash and trinkets, because that doesn't reinforce what the brand's about. You need to have them that are both attainable, but also reinforce what your brand stands for. because the attainable rewards is going to be what ultimately the deciding factor on whether your program is strong and survives, or erodes over time.
Okay. And you talked about this a little bit, but can you maybe give us a couple quick steps that brands, especially CPG brands, should consider when they are looking to drive engagement kind of beyond the transaction, like the top one or two things they should be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we do when we take on a new loyalty brand is we kick off our strategy scoping session by asking them, forget about loyalty, forget about what you think about loyalty, because oftentimes people start with a very narrow focus of what that definition is, and we ask them, what do you want to get your consumers to do? And also, what are they most frustrated for? Because the loyalty program concept or currency can motivate a variety of different behaviors, and it can also solve problems. And so so that's one part of it. The other part is, how do you brand, or what's the personality of the program? And so, like, an example that is 19 Crimes, which is a treasury wine product. It has this kind of fun, irreverent, criminal history to the brand story. And so from a positioning standpoint, you're invited not to join a loyalty program, but to become an infamous insider. It's not a rewards catalog, it's a reward commissary. They want to motivate behavior such as engaging with their label app, and so it's finding like secret codes within that app, so moving beyond just the purchase. And then obviously they want to build profiles, so there's other non-purchase behaviors that are incented. And then there's the positioning of the rewards catalog. And so for example, there's a chance to win prize, a smart speaker. But instead of saying, do you want to get a smart speaker, it's like positioned more as like taking your cruise demands. And so, I think that's a big part, is it's not about just the industry speak, a rewards catalog or reward item or activities that you do. It's really making sure that it's on brand and reinforces that. But then also very much so expanding, the way you develop loyalty isn't through purchase. Purchase is ultimately, it's important, it's fundamental, but it's the byproduct of loyalty, or the entry point. So what are those different ways you want to interact, and how do you want to interact with the consumer? That's what really strengthens it over time.
Right, absolutely. So you mentioned, in addition to customer loyalty programs and technology, obviously, we just did an analyst brief with you guys, going to be in our new industry report. So a very robust platform, very flexible. So looking forward to that. But, you mentioned you have also sweepstakes and contests. Can you talk about how maybe your customer loyalty clients also leverage, your promotional capabilities and contests to drive kind of deeper engagement and deeper customer experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting how loyalty and chance to win promotions really complement each other. So we've almost those two have almost naturally evolved together in many cases. So we incorporate our promotional capability as a way to enhance our loyalty platform offering, and actually it almost they're levers to that platform similar to double points or special earning things and such like that. And what's interesting is we don't just do that for our clients. We do that for a number of other brands whose loyalty programs we don't run, like Hilton, Starbucks, Victoria's Secret, Capital One. And what they can be, if you think of some of the core things that loyalty programs want to achieve from a marketing objective, from acquisition, the chance to win, join a loyalty program feels like this high hurdle event with a long-term commitment. Asking them if they want to win something is a lower hurdle that we then kind of pull them in. The registration information is the same often for the loyalty program as is the promotion. We use the promotion to educate them on it. So now we've taken away the registration barrier, educate them on the program. It's easier to flip them into it. For loyalty programs that, once a person's a member of it, from an onboarding and education experience, so many of these programs focus on getting a person in, and then oftentimes have to rely too much on a member organically figuring out how the program works. So, with Redbox as an example, we kind of overlaid this for the last few years, this kind of gamified experience where we almost take them on a tour of their app and have them learn different ways that they can benefit, which, the more ways I can earn points and benefit from a program, the stronger it is for me, the more benefit is to the brand. We do a lot with advocacy, such as, like with IHG, we'll turn their members into advocates by having them share their priceless experiences. Some clients don't have the ability to do those chance to win rewards, and so we'll add that in as well. So it's just a number of ways, but it really adds the dimensionality and makes it more successful. And to a lot of what your Loyalty360 has been talking about, how do we add the emotional side to it? These are capabilities that take it beyond purchase and add that emotion to the program.
Absolutely. Next question is, we call it our CMO challenge question. We like to ask the social and brand side. If you could ask a question of a competitor, a client, or a brand, something about customer loyalty, what would that be? Something that you have a question about or looking to solve, or what one question would you ask?
Sure. And this may at first glance appear way too basic and simple, but I'd like to ask the question, how do you define loyalty? Or how do you define customer loyalty? And I know that sounds really basic, but to me, there's kind of two reasons why I like to ask it. First, it's incredibly insightful, especially when we're meeting with a client who's interested in loyalty. There are so many different ways that you can define it through, and it's definitely evolved beyond, share of wallet and points for purchase. So knowing how they define it is very insightful in terms of, how we need to, what problem we need to solve or what we're solving, as well as in many cases expanding their view of what loyalty can do. And the other reason, and it's very, very much what excites me is, over the last decade plus, what is loyalty marketing has evolved so much, which is why you're focused on, is your next paper emotional loyalty, and to me, that's really exciting. And that also is a reason why you want to ask a brand, how do you view customer loyalty? Because you'll get even though it's the simplest question in the world, you'll get so many different answers to it.
Yeah, we like to ask that question when we talk to brands, and we like to obviously get from the supplier as well. But I think how they define it from a connotative, denotative perspective is very important, right? And I think how they look at it more holistically is good. And I like customer loyalty more so than loyalty marketing, because at the end of the day, everyone knows what customer loyalty is. Loyalty marketing, yeah, I kind of know what marketing is. I know what loyalty, but what is loyalty marketing? It's kind of one of those old school kind of terms that's really never been defined. And again, asking definition is really important. But I think customer loyalty, everyone knows what that is, right? And they know they have to get it. But you're very pressing in the fact that brands define it very differently.
Absolutely.
Is there a current trend, a new technology, or an idea that's next for customer loyalty, or maybe that brands should focus on today?
I think technology enables this, but I think it's the idea or the concept of creating positive interactions with consumers.
Yeah.
Is really the new focus. As I mentioned earlier, purchase is a result of loyalty. It doesn't create loyalty. Positive brand interactions is what creates it. And that can be done in a number of different ways. We talked earlier with T-Mobile, it's about how do I increase the number of positive moments that I can have with a brand. It can be delivered through making life easier, removing friction. With obviously Starbucks does a wonderful job. I always love using my Chick-fil-A app because I skip that huge line. Hilton room selection. So, those are things that, aren't just, they're not point related at all in many cases. It just removes friction and makes life easier. And then I think a new, not that this hasn't existed, but it is, with COVID, safety is of growing importance. And so I live in Detroit. Delta is my airline. And I'm a fan of it for many reasons. And honestly, the points earning is not my first or second reason why I love it so much. But the kind of the COVID safety thing that I think is interesting lately is they've done an amazing job. They've kept the middle seat open longer than most other airlines out there. They've also, there's been stories where they turned the plane back because someone wasn't wearing a mask, and so, especially, not that safety wasn't always important with airlines, but broadening what is safety, what makes you feel comfortable flying, that is very important. And if, we touched on earlier that travel is a very challenged industry right now. And I think what's interesting is COVID potentially creates disruption in the loyalty membership, within that, because I'm no longer as involved, I'm no longer earning, I've accrued these points. But I think there's a potentially higher probability of people switching allegiance now because my use has been disrupted. And so making sure that you're creating a positive perception for when a person's ready to come back is huge in retaining or stealing share.
Absolutely. And one of the things too, it's interesting, with Chick-fil-A, I think it's a great example. Most people really don't realize that you can walk up and get the food versus having to wait in line.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
number one benefit, and those lines can be huge. And
right. If you walk up and get your food, it takes like 1 minute versus waiting in line for
yeah, it boggles my mind to see 50 people waiting in line and not
getting out.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, the last question we have for you, what can we do as a trade association, that's focused on customer loyalty, customer experience, kind of help others, help you, help the industry on, in their respective journeys?
Absolutely. And so, as you know, we talked, I greatly appreciate everything you do and the partnership that we have together. I think, the focus of really what we're doing today and in other areas is around like that thought leadership and knowledge exchange within the industry has been incredibly helpful. I've enjoyed the Loyalty Live series and the white papers that you've come out with. I think, one interesting area to continue to explore is, loyalty data sharing and benchmarks. Like we all, every company like mine, we have our own secret sauce metrics that we've developed, by running dozens of loyalty programs, and we've all published one form or another of proprietary thought leadership. But it would be, we're also, each of us, rightly so, are very protective of some of the inner workings of that because it is proprietary. And so, how can you, as a neutral third party interested in altruistically bringing forth the industry as much as you can, act as a bit of a hub and to the extent that everyone's comfortable with it, collect those insights and pieces and create more of an aggregate view versus a per company, agency, vendor view.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're working on. So, we have our first industry paper coming out. We're doing our first industry report similar to like the other analyst companies. Will be out in the next month or so. So it's a big direction we're going. If we do the paper on emotional loyalty, we're going to do one on KPI metrics. We started a pricing study as well to look at kind of pricing holistically between the different entities. But absolutely, that's a big piece. We've grown the brand membership, and what we see is brands and suppliers are interested in more open to sharing than they have before, and kind of understanding what others are doing. I really think elevates the discussion around customer loyalty, and that's definitely a direction we're going for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Well, Matt, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. It's a great talking to you as always, and look forward to hearing more from Prizelogic throughout the year.
Great. Thank you, Mark. I enjoyed it. Have a good one.
Thank you.